Anything outside Longbox people, it's another episode of AC and Me, which has become the new name of the show.
Until we think of something better.
Think of something better. This week, I think we're specifically going to be talking about the Batman, or Batman in general, I think, more so a bit. But probably mostly the Batman because it just came out. But and probably other random nerd crap because it seems like we go off on tangents anyway. So, in the continuation of our DC lineup, I guess Justice League-ish lineup at the moment. We talked about Superman, now we're talking about Batman, which is obviously the two, I guess, team leaders you would call them. I don't know if they're not always necessarily the leaders of the Justice League and such, but they're definitely the two heavy hitters of the team.
Elder statesman.
Yeah. the Bruce, even though Bruce is really probably not as old as a lot of the actual characters. So are you, in general, do you find yourself being much of a Batman fan, or is it just kind of like I know you're a fan of comics in general, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to like him. He kind of tells you a truth wrapped in a lie. And the truth is that we all experience the chaos of the world and we want to do something about it. And the lie is that some rich billionaire with mental issues is going to be the one to fix it. And can do so reliably, and with that kind of money would have the vow of a child, the anger of a child affect them as an adult with that sort of arrested development for their entire life, while the rest of them still evolves. His skills evolve. If he had a superpower, I would say that he's a natural tactician, because that seems to be, it's a true leadership skill. It's Batman looks at the Justice League and he basically looks at the powers like there's something he collects, like they're in his bat cave, like, Flash has capabilities that Batman wants to use a certain way, and so he orders him to do it, and he orders Green Lantern to do something because he spends his time strategizing and finding ways to optimize what they have. There's a great story in there are many times that they'll have Batman and Superman kind of switch bodies over the years, and in one of them, like, a Superman, and you mentioned this last time, Superman's not usually known for having like great skill in martial arts or in hand-to-hand combat. It's more of a talented brawler with a lot of experience that has a lot of power behind every punch and only gets the training in certain issues. But Batman, with the powers of Superman, eradicates crime. Yeah, like
so, pretty much. I don't think it would stand much of a chance.
No, they still have that line of not killing, but his line of brutality and inflicting pain and using fear to coerce people into different actions, that's something Superman would never do. And part of it's because of his awareness of what his, and I hate to put it this way, what his brand means. His brand is trustworthy. His brand is, we'll do the right thing. His brand is, I have all this power, but I'm not going to abuse it. Whereas Batman's brand is, if I can get away with beating you almost to death, I will.
Yeah.
So there's something about the two of them. I mean, Batman's got so many power fantasy, wish fulfillment aspects to his character under the veneer of it's possible. It is possible to be a peak human weightlifter. It is possible to be a peak human marathon runner, a peak human martial artist. And the point you made last time, who has that kind of time, even with all the money in the world?
Any one of these things takes a lifetime commitment.
Yeah.
Let alone all of these things.
So it is theoretically possible. And that's kind of the lie of it that we let ourselves believe, even though it is in practicality just, it's not happening.
No, I would say definitely not. One of the things I like the most about Batman, though, is, well, I think that he probably has some of the more interesting bad guys as far as a rogue villain goes. I can't think of any character that necessarily competes, I don't think. I do like the Flash's rogue gallery as well. Of the big ones, I can say. Like, in the non-team books. I really enjoy the X-Men's rogue gallery, but they're it's like a different thing.
Yeah.
They're almost just other X-Men that have a different point of view, technically. Or other mutants.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Clayface, like specifically, I've always really enjoyed, and they're doing quite a bit with in the more recent years. But even like back, I think like Batman Annual 11, I think was like the first Clayface story I read, and it's like an Alan Moore story.
Oh no!
Kind of got me super hooked on the character way back then. Like I was telling you, we just went over Batman Red Rain, so Batman's even fought Dracula. It's not actually like I wouldn't call it part of his rogues gallery, but interesting.
He is famous and has fought Batman.
Yeah, it's bad on bad action,
right?
Yeah, Penguin. I mean, Catwoman's always been the idea of Catwoman's more interesting to me than the way I feel like Catwoman gets written wrong a lot, but when she's written right, it's quite good. I'm always been a big fan of the Riddler, even though I'm less a fan of the Riddler in the Batman movie, personally. Well, that's kind of like not true. I'm kind of like a fan of and not a fan of. Like, I think the character redesign was completely fine because the, outlandish suit with question marks all over it's not going to work out in this kind of like a gritty crime noir that they're trying to tell. But I feel like they kind of took his humor away from him. And I feel like he could be a dark character and still have a sense of humor to his character, which I feel like is the Riddler when he's done at his best. But he had like a brief portion of it in the movie with like the thumb drive thing.
Oh, yeah.
Riddle. But I feel like they could have played into that a little bit more, and they definitely did not. But what's your favorite Batman bad guy before we jump into the movie?
Oh, man. So this is tough because, all right, what you were saying about the Rogues Gallery, the only other character I can think of in comics with a Rogues Gallery as iconic as his was Dick Tracy prior to Batman and sort of through some of the years. That is one character where the Rogues were as much of a piece of the story as he was.
Definitely.
They were, for the time they were fleshed out. For the time they were given, basically given moments to shine and show what they were about. And they were all different from each other and unique and have been imitated in so many other characters. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's I can't remember the name now, but there's definitely a Dick Tracy forebearer to Hammerhead in Marvel. But with Batman, like,
yeah, Doc Hump, Steve the Tramp.
There's so many. There's so many. And Spider-Man probably rivals Batman in a kind of rogues gallery as far as
I think in iconicness, yes. It's just Batman's rogues gallery to me feel like when they're written. Well, I guess you could say that about I'm sure Spider-Man because I haven't read all of them, but like Spider-Man's bad guys are so one-dimensional to me all the time.
It takes a good writer to get anything out of it. I mean, Doc Ock was never someone I took seriously until, and I hate to say it, the Superior Spider-Man story. Yeah. It took me that many years to really find a good...
That's a good version of it.
It is. And, okay, so what happened there was for a minute, Doc Ock finally got to share brain space with Peter as Peter was dying and Doc Ock was in his body and Peter's mind was being trapped or destroyed or whatever. I can't remember Spider-Man 700 note for note now, but I just remember that as he was dying, Doc Ock saw, as they were sort of sharing consciousness, and he saw how Peter saw him, and he saw him as someone he loved and respected and looked up to and wanted to help. And Doc Ock always thought he'd been pitied or hated or looked at like a freak the way other people looked at him. But kind of like, there are moments like this. You and I talked about Superman and Doomsday, and how sometimes when the villain gets that moment with the hero to actually see what they're about, it changes them. And that transformed Doc Ock. Well, in recent years, you said they've been doing more with Clayface. And what I think of is, I think it was kind of that Outsiders group, or a sort of Outsiders-like group that Batman formed with Clayface, Batwoman, Batgirl, who they now call Orphan, Cassandra Cain. And they were reforming Clayface. They were giving him something to help stabilize the crazy part of him. And, you know, when you combine drugs with therapy, the right drugs with therapy, then you actually get, you know, the benefits. And that's what they were trying to do. And I think that's something that has been a long time coming. I think a lot more of Batman's rogues gallery should be transformed at this point to show that Batman not killing them was the right choice.
Yeah.
Now, some of them are irredeemable. Joker is irredeemable. You can't fix that guy. You have to get rid of him. And one of Batman's pseudo permanent solutions was he had him put in Arkham in the basement as under another name, had him bandaged, had him paralyzed, and then used drugs to keep him unconscious so that he couldn't even formulate an escape plan. Motherfucker still got out because he always does.
Yeah.
But, you know, the characters in Batman's rogue gallery, character, I guess, that I like the most nowadays is Bane, and not Bane that broke the Batman's back. That was, they tried very hard to make him a foil for Bruce, like they do with all of them. Joker, he's like, if Bruce, went crazy, he would eventually, if he crossed the line, he would eventually turn into Joker, because he would eventually think nothing matters. You either look at the universe as something that you can control, or something that is completely out of control and you're just writing it. So it's like the chaos and order sides of the coin. You know, Harvey Dent is the other side of Batman's coin. Riddler in the movie, and I definitely want to talk about that in a minute, was the other side of Batman's coin. But they each sort of emphasize an aspect of him. Harvey was the justice part, and the attempt to control a chaotic and uncaring universe. The Riddler is the genius part, is the intellect, is the duel of wits, is showing that you can solve a problem without having to use your fists every time, because some of them can't be solved with fists. But Bane, and he was not my favorite when he came out. He wasn't my favorite when he broke Batman's back. But years later, there's a story where Bane, he got some information as he was looking into his own past, and he found evidence that seemed to point to the fact that he might have been Bruce Wayne's brother. That Thomas Wayne went to Santa Prisca to treat criminals there and may have impregnated Bane's mother. And
I wasn't aware of this.
Yeah, it was it like I liked it because it didn't take any established continuity and crap on it. It took established continuity and put a possible different twist. It turns out, they weren't related. In fact, it was worse. He was the son of like King Snake or somebody else, another villain. But for a while, like he shows up one day in the Batcave, and Batman turns, and it's like if you've ever walked in on a cat that's like licking itself, and you walk into the room, it's like, whoa, what the hell? Like, I didn't expect this. That was kind of like Batman's response. He's like hitting buttons, trying to like call the Justice League, turn on his like poison, knockout gas or whatever. Bane's like, hold on, I'm not here to fight. Batman's like, you're, ready to fight him. He's now that he's kind of gathered himself. And Bane says, look, take a look at these files. I think you and I may have more in common than we knew. I think maybe that's why I sought you out all these years. I think maybe that's why I was so obsessed with your life, because it was the life that I didn't have, and I thought I should have. So Batman is he's obviously very wary of the whole thing. He first thinks, is Bane trying to pull one over on him? Is this, a grift? Is this a trick? But he realizes, because Bane, although he has many layers in different parts of him, he is pretty straightforward with his intent at all times. And that's kind of his thing. He's like a bull that sees red and lets nothing get between them. So he realized that Bane at least thought he was on the level. And Bane was like, I'm going to stay here because this may be my house too. But I'm going to stay here and I'm going to follow up some leads in Gotham. And I'll, of course, let you know what I find out. But I'll need to borrow one of your nice cars over here and I'll bring it back with a full tank of gas. And we should discuss. And it was just such an interesting, unexpected facet of Bane, where what happens when you take away a villain's motivation and you replace it with something better. And it was the greatest Bane story to me, because he was willing to change. He was willing to be more like Bruce. He even adopted his method of non-lethality while he was pursuing the leads. And all of this just showed like that Batman's influence was a positive one, even on someone that terrible. And at the end, when they find the conclusive proof that they're not related, Bane's like, well, I'm sorry. I thought we could have been brothers, and I was willing to let myself believe it, and I was willing to let myself consider that life. But I'll have to find my own path now. And the dumbest thing was, like, DC had an event right after that, and the next time you see Bane, he's just like juiced up on Venom. Oh, by the way, that was the other thing. He had freed himself of the Venom addiction. So he did all that before he would even come to Gotham, so that he could talk to Bruce man to man without that between them. So and DC editorial just completely forgot about it. They had like one of their crisis events or something, and they have a ton of villains lunging at the heroes, and Bane's in there, and they give him one line where he's like, I know who I am now, I'm Bane. And it's like, you motherfuckers, you just wasted all of this brilliant character development, this great twist, this great angle on him, and threw it away. So up until that moment, he was my favorite of the Rogues Gallery.
That's I'll have to read that story, but that's kind of it's a waste of a good opportunity.
I know. Man. I mean, they could have been like, the possibilities were there. The possibilities of a new dynamic duo. I mean, Batman and Bane together fighting crime in Gotham. I mean, just the way the things they could have accomplished. But that's also
at the easiest, he could have just been a great anti-hero from that point on, or like, maybe he's taking it a little too far, but he's doing it for the right reason.
I mean, if he'd followed Batman's non-lethality rule, he could have at the very least been a worthwhile asset for Batman, or gone undercover in the criminal world and taken it out that way without them realizing that Bane would ever team up with Batman. There's so many great stories that were just waiting to be told, and I miss whatever parallel universe that happens in, because we lost out.
And maybe one day they'll come back around. All right,
that was a long answer.
No, that's fine by me. That's one of the reasons why I like Batman's Rogue Gallery to begin with, is because, like I said, it's not always. You definitely get the straightforward stories of, like, Bane breaking the bat, Joker just being crazy. But then you do get the stories like the one you just went through, or like Killing Joke or stuff like that, where you get to see this just like dimensionality, or whatever the word you would use, but like, multifaceted actual character development. And like the bad guys seem to have a motivation that makes sense in a lot of ways. And there's the whole, like, it's like it's been done and said a bunch of different ways, but how Batman's bad guys really only exist because Batman exists to begin with. How they're all just evolutions of criminality because he's kind of upped the stakes, so they've had to up the stakes in what they're doing. So,
I mean, do we think it's really like that? Because, all right, think about the real. I mean, I know that's what a lot of people.
I don't know if it's really like that, but they've definitely said that a bunch.
Yeah, it certainly comes up a lot, and a lot of like, to me, it sounds like gaslighting. It sounds like I'm this, Riddler would have been a criminal. He would have been a card counter. He would have been betting on horse races and figuring stuff out. He wants to prove that he's the smartest person there. And Batman gave him an excuse to be flamboyant about it. But he was a narcissist, and he cared more about getting one over on people than any relationship in his life. And I think that a lot of things come up, like, every time Batman doesn't kill someone, he's guilty of everyone they murder after that. Well, I mean, that's why we need to show the stories where they reform and they help and they become part of the solution instead of the problem. Because if we look at police, and you look at the fact that they get cast off military equipment, or expired military equipment, or out of date tanks, and not like they're using them, but body armor, weapons, vehicles, armored personnel carriers, they've essentially done the Batman escalation, because he wears military grade hardware for fighting crime. Have we seen in recent years criminals blowing up banks with mini nukes or ballistic missiles or anything like that? That escalation hasn't happened.
Or very rare.
Yeah, but it certainly hasn't in proportion to. Yeah. But we don't have this all the time, despite they're not like, I need to rob banks so hard, I'm going to get some military equipment for this. And we don't have shootouts at Wells Fargo downtown every day. Most of the time they're just take your bag of money with the tracker in it, and the insurance will cover us, and the police will be waiting for you. So it's one of those things.
I mean, it's always tropey in movies and stuff, the bad guys are robbing the bank, and then the police show up, and the bad guys are I want a chopper, or something that they're never going to get. I wonder if that ever actually happens.
Man, we should interview a SWAT guy one of these days and be like, have you ever seen this?
Do they actually ask for a chopper? I mean, haven't they seen enough movies? They know they're not going to get a chopper.
Do we have, Hans Gruber, every other week pulling some heist and fucking
taking a Tesla? I mean,
I want an electric helicopter.
Seems highly stoppable. Probably just shut it down.
Just put a tracker in it. Yeah, okay, here's your helicopter. We're going to follow you. Or put a bomb in it. As soon as they've got the hostages out, all of these things don't take but a few seconds to come up with a viable solution. But
I think the smart choice is to have your own form of exit vehicle.
Yeah. But
the one the police give you probably is going to have some bad outcome.
Right. It's already got a cop in there waiting for you to get in and just shoot you. But no, I mean, relying on someone else to give you an exit strategy seems like a really weak position to be in.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be one of my first. Definitely have to work through bullet points on my robbing a bank plan.
So today was actually a big day in Batman movie news. Did you see the latest news?
I did not.
Okay, so there was a deleted scene that was filmed in 4K that was made for the movie with Batman talking to the Joker like Clarice and Hannibal Lecter.
Oh, okay, so I saw it on my feed, on my news feed, but I didn't watch it.
Okay, I checked it out. I mean, it's a short little scene. Yeah, it's a 2-minute scene or something. But it was actually funny because a lot of the things the Joker said were things that me and Tim talked about when we got out of the movie. One of the things Joker is telling Batman is so what, are you jealous of this guy? Do you think that he's right? He's right. That's the joke. He's taking out these corrupt politicians and all these guys that the police can't take out. That's why you exist. And he's actually succeeding. And the Riddler, honestly, from a ethical greater good standpoint, taking out the top like 4 or 5 corrupt politicians in a city that have abused the trust of good people, have taken the money and committed crimes with it, and are responsible for the deaths of many people. When they are the law, they're not going to get justice. So yeah, it makes sense to pursue it that way if you want justice in your city. And I think up to a point, the Riddler, his position was defensible until he tried to assassinate Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And until he tried to sink the city. Because
so those are the two parts of the I mean, like, I'm glad you brought it up, because like those are that to me is where the character falls off in the movie. To where like he's no longer it just doesn't make sense to me. It's not part of like the character they've developed for you on screen. The character they developed on you on screen seems like he's just he's almost wanting to be another Batman. Like he's wanting to do what he's doing. He's, like you said, he's, whether we think he's taking it too far or not, he's trying to be the good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden he's not. And there's really no fruitful development of that to me.
No.
There's other reasons I personally, and I know, like, I talked with Juan about it. I know I'm in the minority, that I didn't really love the movie. And I want to watch it again because I want to give it another shot. But that's not the only reason I didn't love it. There's like lots of reasons I didn't like it. But for the most part, everyone else seems to love the film.
I'll tell you this, man. If they come up with a superhero movie and I don't hate it, I love it. If they make a movie of a character I like and it's not hot garbage, like 2 Batman movies I could name right now, then I'm on board with it. And yeah, there are flaws in it. There are always going to be flaws. There are very few perfect superhero movies so tightly written that they cover all the bases, that the characters' choices make sense, that the drama and the conflict are not just contrived for the sake of getting a set piece into the movie. If you look back at the first couple of Avengers movies, it's we're going to look at these in 10, 15 years from now and go, man, they really got better as they went along.
They definitely weren't my favorite either. I would say those are specifically like those 2, like you're talking about the first one and then Age of Ultron.
Mm-hmm.
Those are definitely like low B movies to me. And then the Marvel world. But here's their redeeming side to me. And I wanted to talk to you specifically about the Batman because I feel like you actually will have a reason why you like this movie, which I haven't gotten out of anyone yet.
Okay.
Everybody else is just like, I like the movie. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because it's like a crime noir. And I was like, well, if I'm judging the Batman on a crime noir, it's not even near the top 10 best crime noirs ever. So I don't enjoy it for that reason.
Most crime noirs aren't that great to watch, honestly.
They're not, but there are a couple that are amazing.
There are a couple.
And so like, I'm just thinking if I'm like judging it on that scale. But like the thing about, I think, the Avengers that at least like I just find them, in my personal opinion, to be a better approach than like this, is at the end of the day they can be just fun, dumb movies. Like there's still enough like things blowing up and random people getting punched that I'm like okay with it. Whereas like, well, at least I'll go over mine because a couple reasons why I didn't like the movie.
Yeah, let's hear it. Get your top 5.
So, top 5. Well, it starts out with the opening of the movie is insanely good. The monologue,
the Rorschach opening,
being part of the shadows, and then the way that they filmed that when they're like looking into each and every shadow, it's actually kind of haunting. Like it's kind of done well, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a good opening.
Then it immediately pans from that to Batman walking down some stairs nonchalantly in a completely not frightening way into a group of bad guys. And I was like, well, you just had that epic setup for like an epic disappointment. And Batman being this, like you said, this like tactician. I've heard it's his first couple years. I don't care. He goes about that fight in a way that makes no sense. It's like he's just there to prove he's the badass. He doesn't really accomplish that very well. They almost kill him in a couple parts of it. Except for some reason, this Batman has body armor that's so amazing that he can take like shotgun shots, like point blank range, and be completely fine. Which
Until
to me,
the
like,
end.
it negates a lot of the like parts of the character that I find fascinating for some reason. You know, like that opening scene in Batman Begins when he's first puts on the suit, where he's, you know, zipping out, he's down from his like battering, or like, pulling a guy around the corner, like he's pulling bad guys into the shadows and they don't know what's going on. That to me is like a Batman fight with a bunch of dudes. Not I'm just gonna wade into 15 guys and fist fight them. I just thought it was not well done, and that seemed to be his approach. And then we go from there to we go from there to him going to the Penguins Club, right? Which the Penguin is the best part of this movie to me.
It was great. That was amazing.
Yeah, and I wasn't really excited about him having a show when I thought about it, and I was like, I loved his character in the movie, so if they're gonna bring him back and give him a show, I'll probably like it too. I've never known Batman to knock on a bad guy's door. That to me just was the silliest thing ever. I was like, he just randomly walks up, knocks on his door, is completely fine with him being a criminal right in front of him, which he seems to be completely fine with multiple criminals being a criminal right in front of him.
Oh yeah, he's doing he's putting the drugs on Catwoman's plate in exchange for the money, like. And yeah, the door thing is not Batman-ish because, like, he would go through a window. He would already have scouted the place. He would already know where it is. Now, I get why they're doing it's year two.
Corner once it closed.
Yeah, and he would have the patience for that. But they're like, this is Batman year 2. He's still not the world's greatest detective. He's still not the greatest fighter. He still hasn't, like, figured out who he's really going to be on this. But... you know, that kind of thing also has to be stated maybe a little more in the movie so that you understand why these mistakes are being made.
And then, and not only that, like, these are just like the nitpicky mistakes, but I also just thought the movie was kind of boring. Like, the Catwoman part of the movie, I'm not against a Catwoman story, but it just seemed to just be in there to have a hot other person running around with Bruce. The motorcycle riding montages, this movie's 3 hours long. We don't need 55 motorcycle riding montages. Like,
yeah.
And the entire third act of the movie, which didn't even fit the narrative of the bad guy that you've been building up to this point, seemed like you just tacked it on for no reason to me. Like, that movie could have just ended without that. Like, I have no idea why that happened at all. It didn't seem to fit with, like, what's going on with the rest of the movie. It's just like, you thought you got me. It turns out I'm gonna flush off.
Well, when they capture the Riddler and they bring him in, and Batman's going and trying to talk to him, and they have the nice fake out where he keeps saying Bruce Wayne, and you're like thinking he's calling him Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. But
then he clearly says, "We almost got him, didn't we?" And talking about like his envy, essentially.
Yeah.
But if it had ended there, and then it wouldn't have been a superhero movie, it would have actually been a detective noir movie.
Exactly.
Like at that point where he's sitting there and he realizes there's nothing I can say to this man that will fix what he's done, that will bring me any closure, but at least he's caught, and that's going to have to be good enough. But it's a superhero movie, so they had to have the explosions and the set piece and, you know, the whole town underwater, and that's what made it like a superhero movie, because a gritty crime noir ends when he goes and talks to the Riddler after he's caught. That's it.
To me, though, I thought that's what we were trying to make with this movie. That's what all the advertisements that I heard about it were. And I'm fine with the superhero movie too, but I just feel like I don't know. I feel like this is the movie they intended to make. They probably did a screener with it, And a bunch of people were like, not enough superhero shit happens. And they were like, all right, third act. Like, out of nowhere. But the other part is, he's not that good of a detective in this movie. Like, and he doesn't even use his equipment. Like, you see at the beginning of the movie when he has that cipher and he has this, like, super bat computer that's, like, figuring out the cipher. That's cool Batman shit. And then later on, when he's trying to figure out what's going on, for some reason, he has a bunch of pictures on the floor with, like, some crayon marked writings. And I'm like, dude, you got a super bat computer. It can probably figure this out a lot better than the way you're doing it right now.
That was actually... No, I agree with you completely on this. After Alfred had been sort of blown up, and I have that scene where he, like, pushes the table over, and he gets the spray paint, and he's, like, messing up his floor. And I'm thinking, what leads us to this? What makes this the choice that he would make right now? Wouldn't a pen and paper aren't big enough? The computer isn't big enough?
A lot during this movie.
That was an unnecessary choice, scene, no reason for it. And a lot of it you can explain away with, one of the big complaints I had was the false Arkham heritage. To explain his mental issues. That I did not like at all. And it also erased Batwoman from continuity, because Kate Kane was his cousin on his mom's side. And unless they're going to make her an Arkham, which, no, then like every Bat person is an Arkham and not a Wayne. Or, it's the Arkham gene that makes them that. And that's not exactly a story point I want to leave with. I don't want that to be.
Very odd. But I thought that thought you were saying, I had that a lot of times throughout this movie. I feel like they just wanted a scene to show you that he's like a detective. And like detectives have like a board with, connecting shit. It's the same thing as in like Suicide Squad when Joker lies back and he's circled by knives. They just want this like film screen that the Joker would never fucking do that. He's a crazy psycho, but they want to show that like, this is crazy. And I was like, that's not crazy. That's very methodical and thought out, actually. The Joker would never do that.
It was made for the camera.
Yeah, Batman is super hyper intelligent with tons of ridiculous technology. He's not throwing Polaroids on the ground with spray paint. Like, it's just... To me, it doesn't represent the character well. The pacing, I thought, was just slow everywhere. Like I said, the riddles are not even good. Most of them are incredibly easy to figure out. I was half asleep figuring them out watching this movie. I was like, the Riddler's doesn't have any kind of real, like I said, humor to him. At the end, I didn't hate it. Like, the movie is still okay. The cinematography is amazing. If I'm just like looking at a movie, like it looks incredible, but it's just, I felt like what you said, you either got to stress the shit out of this is Batman that he doesn't know what he's doing yet, but to me that they never really addressed that. It's just like, this didn't feel like Batman being Batman to me, and I was like, and it was boring, I thought, so I was like, I just didn't like this movie that much. And he's way too emo. I'm sorry.
Bruce was pretty emo. They'd even play Nirvana every time Bruce was out.
That's what I told Juan, is I was like, I didn't hate Batman, but I hated Bruce Wayne. Like, the scene where he literally hits Alfred with the "You're not my father" line, I was like, that is a jerk-off teenage answer from TV.
And he did it twice. He did the, well, you're not my dad, so quit acting like you are. And then the cufflinks. Oh, are you a Wayne? Like, your dad gave them to me. Where do you think I fucking got these? Like, did I pick the corpse of your parents, for this? Come on.
Yeah. It's not like I've raised you longer than your actual father did.
Yeah.
And it turns out your father wasn't that great of a guy. Which that was weird as well.
And they still walked it back, because I did not like the idea of his father being a murderer. I didn't like the idea of his father being a politician. Like, it's an alternate universe, so I accept that. It just wasn't what... it was jarring, because I don't see him that way.
That was one of the first things that, like... everything else, I was just like, I'm not that excited about that. I'm not. But that was like the first part of the movie where I was like, what the fuck are they doing? Like,
so that was your list of stuff you didn't like about it.
yes, that is the stuff I did not love about the movie. So I'm curious, because I think one of one of the reasons I like having these conversations with you is you typically seem to understand your points of view on things. So I was very interested to see why you did like the movie.
Well, I think it's that I'm able to articulate my points of view, and that comes from reading for so long that I've got a lot of language to draw from and a lot of expressions and things.
Sure.
And so in this case, I can pinpoint several things that I really liked about it. The chase scene with the Penguin. First of all,
that's a good scene.
The Batmobile itself being an aggressive predator while it's in the alley and it's just starting up and then screaming, like the fire in the turbines in the back. I know they always try to put that in, but that one, honestly, even the sound reminded me a little bit of the Adam West Batman. And I never want any of that in my Batman movies, but that was okay. That fit and it worked. We put too much Adam West in the Batman movies and you get Batman 3 and 4, and that's, I hate them. I could spend hours talking about why I hate them, but I liked the Batmobile, how it was a monster. I liked how when he finally did end the chase scene, you see it from the Penguin's point of view and his world is upside down and there is a demon walking towards him. Yeah. And as an artist, like, I got a rush watching that. I got the chill down my spine. I was like, this is well done. It's a scene that could have been done. It's been done a million times where there's a car wreck and someone's looking out the window and someone walks towards them. And this is the first time they made the bat hang upside down in his reality. And I
agree. That's part of what I meant by like the cinematography is like amazing in this film.
Yeah, they take ordinary things or cliches and then they put a new spin on it, that because they could have left it exactly the way it was, the way they normally would film that scene, and it still would have been intimidating. In fact, I think it was intimidating when Christian Bale did something like that in the third movie, or third or second, I can't remember now. Third. But so that's part one. Yeah, it's beautiful. I liked specifically when Batman is first walking in to see the crime scene with Jim Gordon, and all the cops are just uneasy around him, and you get all the different responses. You find like disgust, like this guy's a freak, this guy's a pervert, I don't like that he gets to be here and I have to stand back here. There's a lot of envy in that scene. Yeah. And because of good directing, it all came through. There's sort of like a contempt for this guy that comes in and everyone thinks he's the reason the city isn't completely in flames. And people look at him, this freak in a pervert suit, walking by, smug as all hell, and people think he's the reason the city hasn't fallen apart, while the cops are like, what the fuck are we? We're the ones that are dying out here. We're the ones that have to like do corrupt things because the Joker threatens our family, or Falcone like gets dirt on them or whatever. Like they're in the system, and the system itself is toxic. And that was one of the things, like they showed you how hopeless it truly is to solve that city's problems within the system, which is why Batman is necessary. And that was one of the things I liked about it. They proved, or they showed and illustrated believably why you need Batman in that city. Every time he went to Gordon and told him the name of a new cop or a new police chief, or what was the guy that was like in evidence, or the DA, or everyone that he brought him information on, he was like, they're dirty. And he was, like, Gordon was shocked because these were people that he even knew and trusted. Yeah. And everything at the top was rotten. So it showed why you need Batman, because Gordon couldn't have stopped that, couldn't have fixed that, couldn't have even gotten the information when Batman was going and roughing up Penguin and getting information. That's not something a cop can do. Now, is this a message we want in real life? Normally, no. We want people to stick to the system. We want people to stick to the rules. We just want accountability. We want that system to work. We depend on it. So they successfully showed a need for Batman as a creature of fear, and then they showed successfully a need for Batman as a creature of hope and help at the end when he's digging people out of rubble. And I thought the scene where he reaches his hand out to the mayor, and she basically with her eyes tells him to fuck off, because she sees him as the city doesn't need you, I can fix it, because she's naive and doesn't understand. But after other people accept his helping hand, she finally accepts it, because the reality was she couldn't have gotten out of there without him. So that was one of the things I liked about it. They actually showed his effect on the city, his effect on the people in power in that city. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I did, going back to that scene at the beginning where he's walking in to the murder scene, and the cop, I think it was Martinez, puts his hand on his chest, and he's like, whoa, hold up there. I liked how Robert Pattinson played that. He basically, his eyes just turned slightly so they were looking at him, but nothing else in his body moved. And he just waited till Gordon gave the word. But it was one of those, in his eyes, you could tell that was a bad move.
Yeah.
And that's what you want from Batman.
Juan and I talked about that scene as well, because that's actually one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie, including all the way up to the point where he's leaving and he kind of gets the juxtaposition of seeing himself and the kid that's now found his dead father. That scene was incredibly well done. I agree with you.
Yeah, you also kind of see the kid as is he already imagining the green tights and the red tunic on him? He's in his mind recruiting Robins. That was one of the things I liked. The Catwoman thing. I'm going to shift away because it reminded me of something else. The puzzles that that Batman didn't get. And this was a brilliant way to send a message, a woke message, without people immediately saying woke on it. Because woke just means whatever some people don't like nowadays, or they're brown. The things that he didn't understand were because of his privilege. He did not know what a carpet tucker was because he was a rich guy who never would have seen that. Yeah. And it wasn't a condemnation on him. It was you live in a different world where you don't see how this is used. The Spanish, the Penguin, because he grew up not wealthy, or at least he's spent enough time with people that are in different parts of Gotham. He's had to learn, or at least somewhat understand another language in order to just do business, in order to get through his daily life. If you're super wealthy, people have to learn your language. You don't have to learn theirs. Yeah. So when he gives them the lecture about, that's the worst Spanish I ever heard. El rata, el, it's la. Yeah. And it was such a condescending thing, but it was he wouldn't know this because he is so insulated from, even the Riddler pointed out, he lived in a tower with his $1 billion. He was not part of the real world. And it was saying, well, privilege is a problem because you don't understand these things and there are consequences. You need to actually have experience with other human beings instead of looking down on everybody like ants. And it's not that he was doing that from a narcissism point of view. He was doing it from a extremely insulated and also extremely focused point of view. But because he didn't understand Spanish, it took him a minute to get the URL. And it was just, as a Spanish or somewhat Spanish speaker, I can, if you drop me off in Mexico, I could have a conversation, get what I need, and get home safely, probably. I don't speak fluent, perfect Spanish, unfortunately, but that was a scene where I actually genuinely cracked up. Yeah, duh. Come on, man. Funny. You didn't even take Spanish in third grade, you know, like you didn't take Spanish in high school so that you could say caro and get your C and move on. Like he never had to do anything outside of what he exactly wanted to do after his parents died. So I thought that was interesting, which people complain about the woke scene of Catwoman saying like, oh, these rich white fucks are responsible for everything bad in this city. And some people took that like, oh, they're just complaining about white people. It's like, you could take that, or you could take the fact that the commissioner, the mayor, the DA, and the evidence guy were all white guys. Like, it was an accurate description of the people who exactly in that case were the problem. So it wasn't necessarily like a, you know, all white people are bad, but certainly all the ones that are bad to her, that had ruined her life, they fit a certain demographic. Now, that's a discussion for another time. Like, what if we reverse that? Is it okay to say, well, you know, these no good Mexicans over here responsible for everything bad that happened in my life? Well, if 4 Mexicans had gone and like killed somebody's mom and, you know, sent her to juvie or, you know, the orphanage or whatever, like there are a lot of orphans in this movie. There's an abnormal amount of orphans in Gotham. Or maybe not, maybe just abnormal orphans that become superheroes and super crooks. But
I would say it's almost a prerequisite to be a superhero most of the time.
Oh yeah, the dead parents thing. Like nothing makes a superhero like dead parents and toxic waste.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was an interesting.
Both.
Daredevil,
Spider-Man
Ninja Turtles,
dead parents and a radioactive spider.
Oh man, the Ninja Turtles that were part of Daredevil's origin, like they were thrown in the sewer by their own parents. But, well, they didn't know who their parents were. But
see, I can understand all those points of view because those are all things that I really didn't think about the privilege thing that much, but that does make sense. I definitely see it now that you say it, but I didn't I didn't equate it to that. I saw the things you're saying, but I didn't equate it to the privilege thing. But that's definitely a valid point. Because, like I said before, too, like I did not hate the movie. There are definitely things I like about the movie. It just didn't feel like to me, it just didn't feel like when you wrapped it all up, it didn't feel like a good package. But like I said, I do want to watch it again because maybe I went into it expecting too much because it was so hype. When I went to it, everyone I know had seen it already, and everyone loved it. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go see a good movie. And I was like, man, they just ride this motorcycle a lot in this movie.
Their editor could have had a little bit more restraint or, a little more discipline and chopped some of that off. I mean, there's a good 10 minutes of unnecessary stuff. I mean, there are times when you want the slow scene because it sort of like lulls you into it. It almost puts you in a dreamlike state when they do it right. Which is one of the reasons Kubrick does it. I mean, there's the dreamlike state as well as the tension. When you build the action up and then all of a sudden you have to slow down because you don't have a choice and you know something is happening right now that you're trying to stop, like Catwoman about to murder her father, and Bruce has all these obstacles between him and that. Like, that's when you slow it down so that the tension really builds and you just get so pressurized waiting for the release on it. And Kubrick is good at that. And Matt Reeve, I don't know if it's Reeve or Reeves. I have the same problem with Christopher and George, the Superman, but he did a good job of it in most cases. There were a few places like, if he'd had another year to look at it and examine it like Zack Snyder did with his Justice League movie and pour over the details. I mean, you're on a deadline for these things. So you do the best you can within that, and everything got screwed up because of the pandemic. But, I'm not excusing like everything in there. I'm also not saying that these were elements that like killed the story. It's more like, could this scene have gone from a B to an A? Yeah, in a few places. But
I really feel like with tighter editing that this would have been a movie that I didn't like to a movie that I liked. And I feel like it also would have been a movie that didn't need to be 3 hours long.
I get you.
Again, if you want to have the end scene, okay, but I feel like you needed a lot more. I don't know. The third scene just feels really tacked on to me. Not that it wasn't cool, and not that like cool things didn't happen in it. It just felt like there was no real cohesiveness to the rest of the movie, as far as, in my opinion. It doesn't mean it's accurate. It's just that's how it felt to me. That was the most exciting part of the movie.
What did you think of the introduction of Venom? And that was clearly Venom. It was glowing green. Like
that was my thought process on it. It's an interesting point of view to have brought up so quickly. In his world, I didn't know if that means they're going to jump like straight into Bane as a bad guy, or if they're just going to have Venom being just a problem in the city or not. But I didn't dislike it. It was a cool Easter egg for sure.
I think that at least in the comic, you can certainly put the Bane story together from the pieces here, because the Joker and the Riddler were in on Bane's plans. I mean, they were all part of it, or at least the part they knew about. The other thing, though, I feel slightly proud that I caught the Hush thing, even though it was obvious in hindsight, but I caught it as it happened when they said that the reporter's name was Elliot. And I'm like, Tommy Elliot is Hush. Yeah. Now they're changing the story here from the comic. Again, fine if they do a good job. But when they put the X's over his eyes and wrote Hush and a question mark, I was like, okay, there is no way that wasn't intentional.
No, definitely. That was,
You don't have a guy with the last name Elliot who's got a grudge against the Waynes and then actually write Hush on the screen and not have some intent to very least put in an Easter egg, or, hopefully planting seeds for, another villain for him, which Hush worked with Riddler as well in the comic.
You think they would be... Well, yeah, I guess because they don't really have any care about it or not, but that's a bold move to jump into one of, like, I would say the most beloved Batman stories ever. Yeah,
but at least he's new. Yeah. I don't need to... Honestly, I'm okay if the Joker stays in the background of these movies, just being I
don't need more Joker, personally.
He's a great character, but, like, how many Jokers have we already had? And honestly, when Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones played Riddler and Two-Face, they were playing him like the Joker. They were doing a Joker impression for much of it.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of okay without having a Joker-centric movie for a while. I don't mind him being in the background. I don't mind him causing problems, or just... I put it this way. I need him to have a whole movie as much as I need to see the Waynes murdered again.
Exactly.
Answer is, I don't. And I was glad. That was another plus column in the plus column for this. They didn't show the Waynes getting murdered, and
I will say I was happy screaming about that.
Yeah. Bruce in the alley with the pearls and the pools of blood and making the vow. And we've seen it. We've seen it many different ways, many different times. It's okay to say...
I didn't need it, because the Teen Titans movie did it better than anyone else. Have you seen the animated Titans movie? Titans yet?
I don't think I have.
Oh, okay, you got to watch that.
I'm going to look that up. Yeah, I didn't know they even had one. Was it in the New 52 set of DC movies?
No, it's the... what is it called? I got to look up real quick.
It wasn't from, like, Teen Titans, the cartoon with, like, Little Robin and everything, was it?
Yeah, it's like the Teen Titans Go, like, series movie.
Oh, damn. I gotta go look that up. I love that show.
Dude, I can't spoil it for you, because you gotta watch it.
I'll check it out. It's not hard to convince me to spend time on more of that. Yeah.
We'll just say that the Teen Titans have something to do with the setup of the Waynes being killed.
Oh, God. there was a story not too long, well, in the last few years when Alfred was alive, where Alfred had some guilt on a anniversary of a certain day that didn't correspond with the murder of the Waynes or anything else they knew about, and Nightwing approached him about it, and he found out a nice addition to the Batman story that it's another thing that like adds to the origin but doesn't change it and doesn't shit on it. The night that the Waynes were murdered, because you look at it and you're like, they have a butler, and nobody ever thinks about this. Why didn't he just pick him up? Why wasn't he, not only a butler, but fuck, the reason Bruce or Thomas Wayne probably hired him was because, aside from being friends, he was a capable fighter and an experienced soldier. Like, that's what better security for your family could you have? In fact, it would have made perfect sense if the story had been all along that he was hired as Wayne's security and the butler thing was a ruse, because honestly, who the fuck has butlers these days? And I guess that night he was supposed to pick him up, but Thomas Wayne had insisted that he go on a vacation because he hadn't had a vacation in years, and he'd like bought him a ticket to Hawaii or something. And Alfred was like on his way to the airport when he saw the news and found out that the Waynes had been killed. And so he obviously never got to go on his vacation.
Yeah.
But went to go see Bruce, and I thought that's a nice way to add to that and make it even more tragic.